Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Bradley Lambert. I'm an exercise physiologist and clinical research scientist. I work a lot with sports medicine, orthopedics, rehabilitation, and anything and everything strength and conditioning, fitness, nutrition, and all of those areas. So if you like some of the information, feel free to follow along. Also, if you're interested in things for your own research like bioanalytics, statistical analysis, manuscript development, please feel free to reach out to my contact below. Today, we're going to be discussing findings from a pilot study we did in the lab evaluating the impact of the FIFA 11 plus kids neuromuscular training program on dynamic balance in youth female soccer players. So this study explores how evidence-based injury prevention strategies can enhance performance and reduce injury risk in this population. And in general, if you're a parent, I think this is relevant for anyone who has kids playing sports. All right, so let's get started. So soccer continues to be one of the most popular sports globally, especially among kids. However, the sport's dynamic nature, which involves rapid accelerations, decelerations, change in direction, it places young athletes at a higher risk for lower limb injuries. So research has identified that neuromuscular control deficits, poor dynamic stability and balance, and strength imbalances are key contributors to those injuries. Neuromuscular training programs have now emerged as a promising solution to address these deficits. And I should say that in this population in particular, it's very important because as a child, tearing that ACL or something like that is a high risk injury for needing a joint replacement later in life. So luckily, in response to these injury concerns, FIFA developed something called the FIFA 11 program in 2006 for players over 14 years old. In 2016, it was then adapted for younger athletes called the FIFA 11 plus kids. These programs focus on improving spatial orientation, stability, and coordination, while really teaching proper fall techniques. Exercises are progressive. They're integrated into warm-ups, making them practical and scalable for youth teams. So as you see, there's a chart over here that just demonstrates there's a series of exercises that as they progress and start mastering a certain level, they just ramp up. And so what happens a lot is that these are often incorporated into simple warm-ups for teams, whether they're at practice or before games. So with this particular study, we wanted to evaluate the impact of the FIFA 11 Plus Kids program on physical performance in competitive youth female soccer players age 8 to 11. Now, the reason we chose to look at this group is because it's one of the most highly understudied groups in athletics. But the interesting part is in youth sports, females are significantly more likely to experience these types of injuries. So we wanted to really see if this was something that could potentially improve their performance through improvements in things like dynamic balance and things like that. So for this, we enrolled 26 participants. We put 14 in the intervention group and 12 in the control group over an 8-week period. All the players were competitive female soccer players between 8 to 11 years old. And we randomized them into, again, either the control or the intervention group. So we conducted pre- and post-intervention assessments before and after the 8-week period. And I should say that this was not during their soccer season. And as a pilot study, again, we just wanted to do a proof of concept to study to see if doing this neuromuscular training program, the FIFA 11 Plus Kids, had a positive effect. Okay, so let's talk about some of the testing we did. To look at agility, we used the Illinois Agility Test, and we also did a Pro Agility 5-10-5 with them. For dynamic balance, we looked at the Y-Balance test. It's a reliable way of looking at lower extremity balance. These assessments provide insight into coordination and neuromuscular control, and we often use tests like this in our pro athletes to look at not only performance, but injury risk. We also did things like hop testing using single leg, triple hop, crossover hops, and a 6-meter hop test for speed and coordination. We also did strength assessments looking at the quad and glute muscles. And the reason we did that is there is a lot of evidence to show that the relationship between strength in one versus the other can be important in terms of determining injury risk and lower extremity stability. And For those of you not familiar with looking at these types of charts, this is just kind of our baseline demographics of our groups. Our NMT group was our neuromuscular training group that performed the FIFA 11 plus kids program, and the control group was a group that did not perform that across the 8 weeks. So we didn't find any differences in their baseline characteristics, indicating they're relatively well matched and they come from a very similar population. So let's get into some results. So following the 8 week period, we found that both groups had some general improvements in strength, but in terms of the major improvement, we saw improvement in glute to quad strength ratio only in our NMT group, our group doing the FIFA 11 plus kids program. And just for some frame of reference, optimal ratio is around 0.8 to 1. And we definitely saw some increases, but just in our NMT or treatment group, not in the control group. Importantly, this is probably one of the key results of the study, is that only the NMT or FIFA 11 plus kids group showed improvements in dynamic balance following the training program. So in general, the FIFA 11 plus kids program performed just twice a week for 8 weeks can significantly improve dynamic balance. And we are hoping to look at whether or not this improves or reduces injury risk. Not too much to see on this slide right here for our results, basically just showing that both groups had similar improvements in their hop performance. So things like explosive power and ability to land and stabilize. It could be because of the small sample size. We can get into that a little bit later. Now, I really like this slide because I think it demonstrates something important. We found that when we looked at age of these girls, 8 to 11, we found that age was significantly correlated with the following measurements. So strength, I think that goes without saying. Anybody who's playing in sports, as kids age, they generally get stronger, particularly at that age. As kids age, they get more agility because they get a little bit faster, and their hop performance improved. They're larger, they're getting stronger and more explosive just from playing the sport. However, we did not see any significant correlation between age and dynamic balance. So this is important to us because it shows that dynamic balance doesn't just naturally improve with age to the same degree, and it's something that should probably be trained. So it's not just baked in to aging, something that I think is probably one of the more clinically meaningful findings of the study. So for those not familiar with what a pilot study is, I think it's worth noting there's always going to be limitations, not just with pilot studies, but with any study. So for this one, it was only 8 weeks. So we want to take a look at this now going forward into larger scale studies across an actual sports season. And see if there's any reduction in injury rates. Because it was a pilot study and we were only using one small soccer club, it was a small sample size. But again, the point of a pilot study is to kind of show proof of concept so it gives us cause to do the big, larger study that takes more time, effort, and money. This involves self-monitored compliance. So we sent this program home with the parents and the players, and it was on them to do this and report back that they were doing this twice a week. We think that in a larger scale study, in a large team environment during the season, incorporating the coaches and additional study staff to make sure that this is standardized across everyone will be a key thing here. And then obviously there are factors at that age for little girls where we did not collect any data on menarche status, whether or not they were having their cycles. We did not collect data on body composition, skeletal maturity. Those could definitely be confounding factors, and in a larger scale study could be an important part of this. But at the end of this, I think here are our basic conclusions. The implementation of the FIFA 11 plus kids program and youth female soccer players has the potential to improve certain components of strength and dynamic balance. Both of these things we think could help with injury risk prevention. Dynamic balance may be age independent, meaning that it highlights the need for specific training starting at an early age. I mean, they are like little sponges when it comes to neuromuscular control at that age. And if you ever notice, at that age, kids can just pick things up much faster than adults. So that's kind of the golden time to get some of this coordination training in and then maintain it through their sports career. The FIFA 11 Plus Kids program appears appropriate for youth female soccer players to improve body stability and coordination, which are often attributed to key factors in lower extremity injuries. So hopefully this continues on. And I hope more organizations besides just FIFA come up with these types of things for youth sports. I think programs like this I don't think this program has to be limited to just soccer. I think it could be used in a number of youth sports. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. If you like some of the information, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you want more information on my lab and how to support our research, feel free to click in the description. Thanks again.